What's going on, everybody? Now is the time to predict the Green Bay Packers season outcome prediction. The Green Bay Packers, they got hit with some major injuries last season. They lost probably the 5 of their top guys. And when they lost Micah Parsons, they lost 5 games in a row last season. It was very heartbreaking as a Packers fan to see that. In all honesty, though, when the Packers had won the Super Bowl the last two times, they had their best pass rusher in Clay Matthews and Reggie White. So I don't think the NFL would want the Green Bay Packers going to the Super Bowl without Micah Parsons. However, this season is a new season. The Packers move on from Rasheed Walker, who was lacking at the offensive line. They move on from McManus, who was missing kicks. They moved on from Quay Walker, who was kind of lacking a little bit. He was okay, but they also moved on from Rashawn Gary, who was just horrific the second half of the season. He was not producing sacks. He was not putting in a significant amount of effort. So there was no way, really, if you think about it, that the Packers would have been able to beat the Seahawks or the Rams if they were to get through the Bears last season. But the Packers had addressed their major issues. They go out and they get Trey Smack to kick that football. He probably kicks the football way better than McManus, but we'll see. He's a rookie, a warm weather kicker, kicking in the cold weather. It might be a little bit different, but apparently, the Packers saw what he could do, and they were able to move on from McManus, and they still have Haversick at kicking. Special teams was a huge thing last season. The offensive line kind of fell apart. However, the Packers go out and they draft Jagger Burton, who can play center. He can play guard. They go out and they get Javon Hargrave because when Devontae Wyatt was injured, the nose tackle position was kind of a huge issue. They go out and they get Dani Dennis Sutton, another pass rusher from Penn State, who, Micah Parsons is from Penn State. It's going to be a while until Micah Parsons comes back. They get Brandon Cisse. They get Damani Jackson, the corners. They had to go out there and draft some young corners, which a lot of us Packers fans thought they needed to do. And this could pan out for this team in the season here. They get out and they go out and they draft Chris McClellan, another defensive end / nose tackle type of guy. He can handle that position when Devontae Wyatt gets injured. So that was good. They go out and they get Zaire Franklin to take the spot of Quay Walker. Some say that actually might be an upgrade. But we'll see. But anyway, the Green Bay Packers season prediction. Here I am, going to do it the best I can in a non-biased fashion. The Green Bay Packers, first week of the season, they go up against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. They're without Micah Parsons. And who is the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings here? Is it going to be Kyler Murray or is it going to be J.J. McCarthy? I think it's going to be Kyler Murray, but we'll see how this goes. You got a new quarterback that has to learn a new playbook, a new system. The Vikings do, however, have Juwan Jennings in that wide receiver room with Addison and Jefferson that can be kind of tough. And then they got Hawkinson, who's kind of a little bit on the decline. He's a little bit getting older. They had all kinds of changes on defense. They don't have Hargrave anymore, but they did draft Orange, Big Citrus, a nose tackle guy who doesn't really go after the quarterback, but they got the guy Banks, who might be really good. We'll see. His numbers weren't all that significant, but I think that the Green Bay Packers pull out the victory in Minnesota without Parsons because the Packers offense is just going to be clicking, I think. Packers defense, they just got to figure things out without Parsons, but I think that the Packers pull out the victory over the Vikings. Sorry, Vikings fans. Not sorry. Anyway, week 2. The Green Bay Packers take on the New York Jets in New York. And I think that the New York Jets are just not going to be that good. Geno Smith just doesn't seem appealing to me. He's a little bit older now. He played okay for the Seahawks at one point. He didn't play that well for the Raiders. I mean, the Jets, they have Garrett Wilson. They had a bunch of changes with their draft. But I think that the Packers will pull out the victory here in New York, because the Jets are kind of like that now they're kind of a developing team again. They're rebuilding their team. And the Jets are just cursed. I think they're just cursed by Danhausen. All right. Week 3. So that's another win for the Packers in week 2. Week 3. The Green Bay Packers face the Atlanta Falcons, and they face them in Green Bay. Is the quarterback going to be Michael Penix, or is it going to be Tua Tagovailoa? I think it's going to be Tua. However, these quarterbacks are very, very mediocre. The only real threat for the Atlanta Falcons is Bijan Robinson. And the Packers went out there and they got depth at the defensive tackle position. I think the Packers pull out the victory here. Yes, they got their threat they got some of their threats on offense in terms of, Kyle Pitts has played a little bit better. They have Drake London, who's that big threat for catching the football. They picked up Jahan Dotson. But really, if you stop Drake London, you stop Bijan Robinson, you stop the quarterback in his tracks, Packers take the victory here. All right. Now, things get a little bit tricky here in week 4, because the Green Bay Packers have to pack their bags and travel out to Tampa Bay, to take on the Buccaneers. Now, the Buccaneers, they no longer have Mike Evans, but they do have a great threat in Emeka Egbuka, who is a great draft pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And at the same time, you got a guy who's kind of iffy, wishy-washy with their quarterback and Baker Mayfield. It's like flipping a coin here. He might do well, he might not do so well. They even drafted a good pass rusher in Ruben Bain, apparently. It's going to be his first season, but we'll see how it plays out in week 3. But I think that the Packers, because it's going to be in Tampa, because it's going to be a warm weather spot, and the Packers are they don't always play well in a warm weather spot. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take the win. The Packers get the loss here, the first loss of the season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But we'll see how it goes. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong here. And then week 5, the Green Bay Packers go up against the Chicago Bears. And it's in Green Bay. Packers are not happy with how the Chicago Bears games played out last season. The Packers won 1 game out of the 3, but the 2 games the Packers lost to the Bears, unfortunately. They had major injuries. I'm really hoping that Micah Parsons is back for this game to drill Caleb Williams to the ground. Now, the Chicago Bears are without DJ Moore. They lost 4 of their top 5 interception-capable players. They traded away DJ Moore to get some guy named Garrett Bradbury, and then they draft a center. So they traded for a center, and they draft a center to make sure their center position is working out okay. They draft a tight end in Sam Roush. So now they have 3 tight ends on this team. They get some small guy in Xavier Thomas. I guess he's kind of fast. Maybe he's their kick returner of some sort. But really, they don't really have too much of a threat on offense, in my honest opinion. They're probably going to run the football way more. They are probably more suspect of more injuries this season, as they're going to have the Bears are going to have a much tougher schedule. They didn't address their pass rush. They didn't go out and get another pass rusher. So if Montez Sweat goes down, they're done. If they lose Loveland, they might be done. They got a little bit more depth at tight end. They have Luther Burden and Odunze, who are not too scary, in my honest opinion. Their running game is good just because their offensive line, I would say, is their strength. But Caleb Williams is that finger-painted player. He's going to make some mistakes. He's going to throw some interceptions. And I think the Packers will get a couple interceptions this season off of Caleb Williams. And the Packers take the win in Week 5 against the Bears. Week 6, the Green Bay Packers take on the Dallas Cowgirls at home. It's a Sunday night football game. Sunday night football game against the Dallas Cowgirls. This is going to be very interesting because the Cowgirls have two big targets at wide receiver in George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. We'll see if they'll be playing or not. I think Dak Prescott is a mediocre quarterback. I think he got overpaid with a $60 million a year salary. The Cowgirls now have Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark. And the Packers have Micah Parsons. So this should be a very entertaining game to see. Hopefully it doesn't end with a tie like last season. But I have the Packers taking the win here against the Cowgirls at home. Week 7, the Detroit Lions. The Packers go up against the Detroit Lions on a Sunday 4 o'clock game in Detroit. The Detroit Lions have a little bit easier schedule than last season because they lost so many games last season. They had so many injuries last season, but just like the Packers, they had so many injuries that kind of changed how their outcome was last season. But I think that the Detroit Lions will be a little bit better this season. We'll see how it goes. They got a new center in Cade May. I think he was on Carolina Panthers. They go out and they draft a right tackle in Blake Miller, who can play immediately. They drafted a new wide receiver and Kendrick Law. Not sure how great of a pick that is there. But then they still have the same cast of players. St. Brown, the wide receiver, one, I would say. They still have a tough running game in Gibbs. And they go out and they get Pacheco. They go out and they buy Pacheco to be the running back 2 for this team. So offensively, on paper, it looks a little bit better. They go out and they draft a Derek Moore, another pass rusher to put on the team to complement Hutchinson. Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph are both injured. Brian Branch, I would say, is more of a dirty player. Actually, they're both dirty players, those two guys. But ultimately, I think that the Green Bay Packers get this win against the Detroit Lions in Detroit because the Packers are just so much more prepared. Now, Week 8, things get a little bit interesting here. I think that Green Bay, they're going to go up against the Carolina Panthers in Green Bay. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be a loss. It's going to be a loss against the Carolina Panthers, unfortunately, because the Carolina Panthers defense got a little bit better. And because some people say that the Green Bay Packers, there's no way that they will lose 2 times in a row against the Panthers. But I think the Panthers got a little bit better because they have a huge target in Chris Brazzell. They got the guy McMillan. I think their running game got a little bit better. The only thing is they got Rasheed Walker now on that offensive line. It's going to piss off a lot of fans. He's going to, He's going to draw penalties at least 10 times per year. Guarantee that. But some people still kind of question the Carolina Panthers defense. However, they have gotten way better. They got Devin Lloyd. They have Jalen Phillips. Nick Scorton might have a breakout season. They have Derek Brown, Bobby Brown, Mike Jackson. They got guys that can intercept the football on this defense. So, unfortunately, it's a loss here. Panthers get the win. Packers get the loss. And it's move-onsies. Week 9. The Green Bay Packers pack their bags and travel out to New England to take on Drake May and the New England Patriots. And it's a win. Because I don't think the New England Patriots are going to be all that great at this moment in time. The Patriots are going to have a much tougher schedule. And it's going to be fun to watch because they're going to have Romeo Doubs on this team. It's a 4:00 game. Romeo Doubs is now on the New England Patriots. He's going to be probably their number 1 wide receiver. It's going to be fun to watch. And I just can't wait to see how it goes. But, yeah, New England Patriots are kind of boring in the Super Bowl last season. Usually they call that a Super Bowl hangover, where the losing opponent just loses a bunch of games the following season after losing in the Super Bowl. I believe in that. I believe in it. And then the Green Bay Packers in Week 10 take on the Minnesota Vikings again, this time at home. And I think the Packers get the win here because they established their offensive line. The offensive line probably got better. So if the offensive line got better, then the running game got better. You got Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd hopefully is playing. And the defense just clicking on all cylinders at this moment in time. They beat the Vikings. And knowing that they got a bye week after this, so they get a bye week, they rest up. And then they have to travel out to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. Really tough to predict at this moment in time because injuries can play a huge role into how things go in this moment in time. The Rams look nasty on paper. They have Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua. I still think Matthew Stafford is a great quarterback. You know, the trade between Matthew Stafford and the trade between the Rams and the Lions, you know, it definitely favored the Rams more because Matthew Stafford has a Super Bowl under his belt and he went much farther this past season. But I think the Packers get the loss here in Los Angeles, unfortunately. Usually they always beat the LA Rams in LA. But I just looking at this team on paper, they just have so much firepower. But then again, I could be wrong due to injuries. And the Packers, you know, they might be clicking on all cylinders at this moment in time. Who knows? But they get the loss here. Week 13, the Green Bay Packers travel out to New Orleans to take on the Saints. If you look at the Saints quarterbacks, they're very mediocre. Really not much of a threat there. I just think the Packers will take the win here in New Orleans. And then the Packers take on the Buffalo Bills. Not in Buffalo with going up against them in their new stadium. They're going to take on the Buffalo Bills at home. And the Buffalo Bills now have DJ Moore. They have they had a different head coach now. I would say some people say that was a promotion for that guy in particular. He's been on the team as a coach before. I'm not sure who that guy is, by the way. But there's a new head coach, Josh Allen. You know, he's trying to solidify his name, trying to make a playoff spot here for the Bills. I think the Bills probably take their division, but yeah, they're going to be really tough playing in Green Bay. It's going to be a Sunday night football game. Bills take the win. The Packers lose. Week 15, the Green Bay Packers take on the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins have to travel out to cold Green Bay. Cold Green Bay. Malik Willis versus the Green Bay Packers. They have Jeff Hafley now as the head coach. Should be very entertaining to see how this goes. I know the Dolphins are kind of on a rebuilding year. They are paying significant amount of money for a bunch of players that are not even on their team. Their biggest threat is probably Malik Willis and A-Chain, I would say. But I got the Packers taking the victory here. Packers win in Green Bay against the Dolphins. Week 16, the Green Bay Packers travel out to Chicago to take on the Bears again. And because that Micah Parsons is doing well, the Packers are clicking on all cylinders. They are going to defeat the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears have a much tougher schedule. And because of that, I think the Packers stomp on the Bears and take the victory. They are aware of Austin Booker and his cheap shots. They are aware of how dirty they can play. This is the Bears are just not going to be as good as they were last season. And I think the Packers are going to be much better as they are going to be much healthier. And because of that, Packers win Week 16. Week 17, Packers take on the Houston Texans. Houston Texans have a really tough defense. It's a warm weather team traveling out to Green Bay. However, I think the Packers take the loss here, unfortunately. But then again, I could be wrong. But yeah, the Texans have a really tough defense. They have guys that can truly handle it on defense. So, and because of that, I think the Packers get the loss. Week 18, the final game of the regular season. Packers are trying to take on the Detroit Lions at home. They're trying to solidify their top spot in the NFC North. People are saying Matt LaFleur cannot win a NFC North championship, and it's been a while. But I think the Packers take the victory against Detroit Lions because the Packers are clicking on all cylinders. They don't have major injuries, hopefully. And they win this. They take the NFC North. And the Packers are just going to be a tough team this season. If you look at the last 5 games of the season, 4 of them are in Green Bay. 1 of them is in Chicago, a.k.a. Green Bay. They are going to be, looking at the schedule overall, I think it favors the Green Bay Packers in so many ways possible. And I think that if they can stay healthy, if Jordan Love can stay healthy, they establish the offensive line, and the running game plays really well. They have great targets in Matthew Golden, Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft. Maybe Musgrave does something this season. We'll see. The defense on paper looks amazing. You get Micah Parsons back. You got some young guys that can get to the quarterback. They have Javon Hargrave. I just think that this is going to be a much better season for the Green Bay Packers than the previous season. They have moved on from McManus, who has missed 5 kicks in the past 2 playoff games. If this Trey Smack guy pans out, hopefully the Packers can smack their way into a Super Bowl of some sort and see how it goes. Maybe it's a Packers-Steelers Super Bowl. That would be amazing on Valentine's Day. So, please let me know what you think in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe. And that's all I got to say. And it's Go Pack Go all day.